feeling good, can I tell?
Yeah. You ready, brother? Ready?
What's that, family? My name is Brother Ray. Talking too loud, huh?
Yeah, man.
We'd like to welcome everyone to the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club. We meet here every Wednesday, every other Wednesday, in honor of William Mackey Jr., Amos Wilson, Elhaj Malik Al-Shabazz, Louis Ray Rivera, Gil Noble, Brother Saab, Minister Khaled, Alton Maddox, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, Minoko Rashidi, Miss Leola Maddox. And one thing about Miss Leola is she had an old car, and she believed in elections so much, she drove that old car to the United African Movement, where the speakers would come, because she believed in bringing people together. And that's why we have this lecture series. For all the people that gave her fame and fortune, they didn't take the blue pill, and they could have made a whole lot of money. They could have been like Skip Gates, but they chose to go the other way, to bring true information, because that's what it's about, information. So we're going to bring the camera over to the Amos collection. The Amos collection is in honor of Sababu and Amos Wilson. So Brother Sababu can continue the work of Amos. African World Info Systems. We have Blueprint for Black Power. The psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat for the reclamation of the African mind. Black-on-black violence. Falsification of African consciousness. African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order. Issues of manhood in black and white. Awakening the natural genius of black children. And developmental psychology of the black child. We also have Louis Ray Rivera, Jazz in Jail. S.K. Damiani, the bastardization of African cosmology, and unveiling the unspeakable Bible verses. But I always want to say, and I bring this up in honor of Louis Ray Rivera, who left us too soon. And when Professor Mackey died, Louis Ray Rivera would come here and he would speak for hours. And then he didn't live too far. We would walk him home, and Louis Ray would talk for another hour and a half, and he only lived 5 blocks away. And he come out of the project, Marcy. Knew my whole family, so I would never want to forget Brother Louis Ray. Jazz in Jail. Now, Amos's classic, Black-on-Black Violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. And globally, this book speaks about black-on-black violence. And every talking head, big city mayor from New York, Newark, South Carolina, California, everybody. Black-on-black violence, y'all can't get nothing together. Look what's happening. If you get this publication of black-on-black violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination. So whether we know it or not, we are still in service of white domination. Amos would be on the call of duty in this classic black-on-black violence. Now I want everybody that came out, that supports the Brooklyn William Mackey Jr. History Club, to give yourself a great big hand. You come out in the rain and support us because you believe in coming together and getting the information. And I gotta salute you for that, and supporting the Mackey Group. So, I got some publications I want everybody that we support, that you get these books, and you can purchase them and read them. In honor of Dr. Randy Short. Slavery Mastery, the impact of religious slavery revealed. This is Dr. Randy Short. Trust, Louis Ray Rivera. Jews, God, and History. If you read this book, you'll find out there's a lot of stuff they implement that's suspect. In honor of Professor William Mackey Jr., a modern woman look at Orthodox and Hasidim Judaism, A Hole in the Sheet, by Evelyn Kay. And this talks about the living conditions and what a lot of people had to do. The Shadow Party, how George Soros, Hillary Clinton, and the 60s radicals seized control of the Democratic Party. In the newspaper today, 13 illegal weed shops was closed so the legal weed shops could continue selling. I don't know what they're selling, but it's a person behind the legalization of marijuana. Dope Incorporated, the British Opium War against the world. And there's a picture here of young George Soros speaking about his game plan of legalizing marijuana. Now everybody's smoking. The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. It'll tell you a lot of the mistakes we made in Kemet, in the continent of Akaglan, and not always we was together like they say. When China sneezes, from the coronavirus lockdown to the global political economic crisis, in honor of Cynthia McKinney, we have this book. The great Dr. Ben, Black man of the Nile and his family. Dr. Ben didn't have too many computers at this time. And he wrote this book on the black man and his family. So in honor of Dr. Ben. I just picked up this book by cruising. And if you want to know something on Barack Hussein Obama, aka Barry Santoro, and there's a few other names. This is Wayne Manson, the manufacturing of a president, the CIA insertion of Barack H. Obama Jr. into the White House. Just happened to be cruising and picked this book up. I saw it at a used bookstore. Thank you for Rumble and Big Shoot. Inside the secret network of George Soros, the man behind the curtain. And if you ever watched The Wizard of Oz, you found out the man behind the curtain wasn't nothing but a little phony. But this guy ain't phony. Everybody's talking about reparations. Without sanctuary. Brother Raji, pull up to the bumper and see the pictures of the hangings without sanctuary. The hangings that happened to us. They have all the pictures. The dogs, the postcards. Brothers hanging all in the South, in the North. The lynchings. This is hanging from a bridge, and all the people looking. And every time you turn around, you say, we got to have a study. They must not have this book. This book must be something that they don't have in their library. Okay. Edward Downs Classic, Causes Unknown, the epidemic of sudden death in 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, going into 27. Edward Downs, Bad Man. The Irritating Genie, Io Kamati, in his classic, Jews Are the Problem. This book is excellent, and we want to thank the Genie, Io Kamati, for coming out with this, and you can get this on Money Tree Publishing. But we have a few copies here for the people here if you want. Dr. Genie did an excellent job. Capitalism on a Ventilator. The impact of CO-19 in China and the US. It'll tell you a lot of stuff about the ventilators. I found this in a rummage sale on the Lower East Side. Deception. Senator Rand Paul. Deception, the great CO cover-up. It's a big read, but if you got a problem, Senator Rand Paul. We got the blockbuster doubleheader, The Real Anthony Fauci, and The Truth About COVID, Joseph McCullough, Global Lockdown, and the War on Democracy, Free Speech, and you see it now, you can't even say nothing. You got to watch yourself. Kennedy's classic, Vax and Unvaxxed, Let the Science Speak. Another excellent publication. Another blockbuster by Kennedy and the Children's Health Defense, The Wuhan Cover-Up, the terrifying bioweapons arms race. And while everybody running around thinking that New York, that America and China is against each other, you're out your rabbit mind. And if you don't believe me, go on a website called Alibaba, made in China. They selling everything over there. I ain't seen the factory here yet. Dr. Scott Whitaker's Medicine, the causes and solution and diseases to the malnutrition and the medical sins that are killing the world. In honor of Dr. Scott, we have these books here, and once you read this, you're going to get a whole nother impact. I'm going to name a few events. One of the hottest shows on the East Coast. Thorough Black Talk. Tad, Keisha, Ashe, Brother Blacksmith, and Sister Marma, a.k.a. Sister Marcia. That's one of the hottest shows on the East Coast, and Sister Keisha and them is knocking them down alive on YouTube, streaming, Facebook, and they come on every Thursday at 8 o'clock. Our Power Pack Philadelphia Connection with Sister Empress Chi and the Million Women's March. That comes down every Saturday at 10:30, and the number is 1319-527-6189. Sister Empress is doing an excellent job down there, and Brother Lumumba and everybody, excellent program, and you could tune in and talk and give your insight. Every Monday, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio, 10 o'clock a.m., WSYP 95.1 FM, AM from Birmingham, Alabama. And the Io Kamati has a new DVD out. And it's called J's on the Problem. And I can tell you he did an excellent job on this one. So we're going to give information where you could get that from Money Tree Publishing. Salute to Io Kamati and the Irritated Genie. Our Baltimore Powerhouse Connection comes on maybe Wednesday, Thursday, but the Saturday program with Brother Darren Muhammad, State of the City 1590 TuneIn Radio, and on Instagram and YouTube. Brother Darren is laying it down hot and heavy. And he's a bad man. I call him the Powerhouse. Every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, Dr. Aline, Your Immunity Program. That comes on 7 p.m. If you go into Your Immunity Program, he'll tell you about it. That's a Zoom meeting, and sometimes it'll be 100 people on there. I want to salute Dr. Ali for giving out so much information on the CO19. It'll block your world. Also, every Friday, our African Echoes organization out of Newark, New Jersey, with Brother Trust Graham, African Echoes have a study group every Friday with Brother True and the gang out of Newark, Danny and them, and they're doing the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat toward the reclamation of the African mind. And not only that, they give you a double header. The Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park also does has a study group, so that's Brother True and them again. Trust is the mediator of that group. And they meet on Saturdays, and that's at 1:30. So they give you a double header. The Simotap organization with Dr. James McIntosh and Richard Dean Theodore, I don't know what happened, but they wasn't on today, so we have to find out. Minefield program comes on every Wednesday from 2 to 3. Also, okay, that's it. Did I miss anything? You can look at all the lectures of the B.K. William Mackey Jr. History Club on YouTube. Do your study, do your research about the information, because for educational purposes, whatever a speaker talks about, you can do your own research and come to your conclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, his lectures, he can tell you more about the Community Cop program. His lectures is on YouTube under Community Cop. You could go into the lectures and listen to him, Noel, Julian, and all of them, and do your own research. All of his lectures is on the Maggie's group, and you could go in. He's always a good supporter of the Maggie's group, one of the founders when we started it back. And ladies and gentlemen, without any ado, we want to give our brother, Mike Graves, a great big hand.
Hotep. Hotep.
Hotep.
Say I am.
I am.
Because we are.
Because we are.
I am.
I am.
Because we are.
Because we are.
It's good to be here tonight. This is a good night to have an off-the-cuff conversation. There's quite a few things I want to cover. See some people in the house I haven't seen in a minute. It's good. Good to see some people that, it's always real good to see some people that you haven't seen in a minute. You know, you wonder how they're doing sometimes, and so when you see them, you know whatever the situation was, they okay because they're here now. So that's always a good thing. How you doing, brother? You all right? Good to be seen. Good to be seen. There's quite a few things I want to cover. And from the outset, you know, last time that I did a lecture, I felt like giving revolutionary greetings to Sister Pam. You know, Pam was on my mind, and I said, you know, I gotta send some revolutionary greetings her way because it's only right. I was thinking about it all day, and so that, you know, I was glad I was able to do that, and got a call from her after that, so it was really nice. You know, got a call from her, and you know, it was just a real good thing. Always good to hear from her. Tonight there's somebody that I definitely want to send revolutionary greetings out to, and inspire them just that little bit extra to continue to struggle. You know, there's somebody that we all know, most of us here know her. I dare say most of us here love her. And I know for a fact that everybody here respects her. Somebody that that needs no introduction. No introduction is necessary. You know, it's just, I just have to say her name and want to send her flowers because I'll be missing her birthday celebration, which I was looking forward to attending. And that's none other than our sister Betty Dobson from the mighty Simotep organization. So please give her a hand.
Yeah.
Sister Betty Dobson has struggled long and hard, and that's the only way that struggle. That's the best way to struggle. Struggle hard and be relentless, because we're fighting a relentless, untrackable foe that's just every day evil and mess is going on. So it's good to see somebody like Sister Betty fighting to keep our image strong, fighting to keep us upright, and to fight those negative images that has been visited among us. So in greeting her, I greet the entire Simotep organization with revolutionary greetings and to continue to struggle in the best way you know how. And that's a beautiful thing. So, you know, Sister Betty, wherever you are, I don't know if you watching the broadcast or not tonight, but certainly, hopefully, it'll be somebody out there that'll let you know that I did mention you, because Dr. McIntosh might be the type that might not even let you know that I was thinking about you. So I got to do it myself. Of course, I'm only joking because Dr. Mac called me the other day, and I let him know that unfortunately I won't be in town to catch her birthday, which I always look forward to every year because it's always very nice. You know, if you know Simotep, you know they really lay it out nice. Whether they're in the big place or a smaller place, it's always very nice. And they got some good cooks there too. You know, the food is good. So appreciate so much Simotep and all that it does for our people. And they're here for everybody. That's one thing I will say. They don't believe in censorship of people in the struggle. Everybody can get an audience with Simotep, and at one time or another, they've helped somebody you know. Trust me, they've helped somebody you know, somebody you care about, because they're in the helping business. So they always help people. So much respect to that mighty Simotep organization, headed by Sister Betty Dobson and Brother James McIntosh. So in their spirit, I greet you tonight, again with one more hotel. And Wakanda forever. I mean, it's real. It's as real as you make it. It's just a few people keeping us from the Wakanda forever. Because if we ever turn around and just start supporting each other, if we started supporting each other and we said for the next year, let's not even say a year, for the next 6 months, buy black. For 6 months. Can you stay out of white stores for 6 months? Or are you going to catch some kind of disease if you be around our people too long? Just try it 6 months. Supporting yourselves, investing in each other. Try that 6 months. And your life will be enriched because you'll be enriching others. Try it for 6 months. We have business people in here that can put you in touch with. If I wanted to know where some black businesses are, I could ask Sister Keisha, and she could give me a whole list of, she'll ask me, what are you looking for? When I tell her that, I'm sure she has a black business in mind that I can go patronize. And if she don't have it, which I know she does, then Brother Rajim would have it. So we have people that know about black business and that encourage all of us to support black business. So that's what we should be about anyway. And you don't have to convince people in Crown Heights on where they're going to spend their money. You don't have to convince people in Williamsburg where they're going to spend their money. They already know where they spend their money. I don't care what kind of store you put in Crown Heights or if you put them in Williamsburg and it's half the price of other stores. I know what they're going to support. And it's not going to be you. You know, and that's just where it's at. That's the way it was yesterday. That's the way it is today. And that's the way it will be tomorrow. You will not get any support. I don't care if you cleaning pants, dry cleaning pants for 50 cents. You will not get one person who come in your store, not from Crown Heights. That's not going to happen, or from Williamsburg. You might get some outsiders, but you won't get them. So, you know, each one teach one, each one reach one, and in that vein, let's get started. Tonight, just in case you don't know, I want to talk about the meaning of whiteness in America. The meaning of whiteness in America. We've all heard, you know, free white in 21. We've heard our people aghast at things like, why did that happen the way it happened? You know, I've asked the question here, who are we? Are we who we think we are? Are we all we're supposed to be? Ask that question. I've asked, what we gonna do? We have a lot of situations in front of us, and we have to get a little better. You know, I'm not going to be talking about what rap person is having a problem with another rap person. I'm not going to be talking tonight about who goes with who and that kind of stuff. That's just not my cup of tea. So I don't know who in Hollywood is doing who in Hollywood. I don't know that, and I don't think I'm missing anything. So who's got the beefs, these silly beefs of millionaires? I don't get into all that stuff. I have a limited amount of brain cells. I know it's in the millions or billions, but I don't have any to afford that I can lend to that kind of silliness. That's just not me. Now, if that's what you do, if you on those websites we do that, I'm not criticizing you. That's what you do. But that's not what I do. I like to think that what I do is a little more serious than things like that. So I'm not talking about clones and all that other stuff. You know, you can slap me and wake me up when there's some real clones. I don't know of any. You know, I don't know of any. I'm not saying that it don't exist. I don't know of any. So when I see a person, I think it's that person. When I see Ray Ray, I say that's Ray Ray. I don't say that's Ray Hay or May Hay. No, that's Ray Ray. You know, and that's about it. Now, until you prove me otherwise, every time I see him, I'm going to say, yo, that's Ray. That's Brother Ray. That's all I got. I can't go into all that other spooky stuff that's out here. Can't do it. Not me. Dr. Clark didn't do it, so I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm just not going to do it. You know, Dr. Collins didn't do it, I'm not going to do it. So I got a different approach. Is that who I think that is right there? No.
So you think it is?
I think that's no, I'm not sure. But he's got a Freedom Party shirt on. I can't tell. Somebody with a Freedom Party shirt. They got a Freedom Party shirt, especially the red, black, and green ones. I should know them. I'm not sure. I think I know what it is. So let's get started with the meaning of whiteness in America. First of all, to know America, is certain things that you should know. From the outset, the three carvings in Stone Mountain, who are they? Want to talk about America, and most of us here have been in America a long time. I know you might travel, but you've been here a long time. What are the three carvings at Stone Mountain? So you already know it's just three.
Jefferson Davis is one.
Jefferson Davis, yes sir.
FDR.
No sir.
Robert E. Lee.
What you say?
Robert E. Lee.
Say it with some bass, Doc.
Robert E. Lee.
Yes sir. And who's the last one? Reason I'm saying that is because you got the right answer. You got 2 out of 3. So you on it. It's only one more.
Colin Powell.
No. Stone Mountain. You let them go up there. They'll forget all that Republican stuff in a minute. You let them go up there to Stone Mountain. Stonewall Jackson.
Stone Mountain, Stonewall. Damn it.
See, the thing is, they're all generals. So it shouldn't be that hard. A part of me want to ask Sister Keisha a difficult question, but I won't do that to her. But I'm going to ask you the question. If there would have been a fourth, who would it have been?
Bedford Forrest, Nathan Bedford Forrest.
See? That's when you know you got a go-to person in the audience, you can ask them a question that's not even, it doesn't even exist. A hypothetical. If there would have been a fourth, you better believe it would have been Nathan Bedford Forrest. Because they all killers. The 3 that were named all killers. Who's a fourth killer on that level, just as dangerous as all of them? Nathan Bedford Forrest. But Keisha, you got it right. That's wonderful. Now, if I just asked you another easy one, all you just got to do is think about it for a minute. If I asked you about Mount Rushmore, you know that term is used quite often in talking, if you talk in sports, boxing, basketball, you know, they'll say, well, who's your Mount Rushmore? So I'm asking you tonight, Mount Rushmore, who's on Mount Rushmore? It's only 4 people. Who said that?
I did.
You said who?
I said, isn't it George Washington?
That's one. Go ahead.
Abraham Lincoln.
Who?
Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, sir, that's 2. Go ahead. That's Ray Ray's sister. In case y'all don't know.
I can't think of the other 2.
Roosevelt.
So you said
Roosevelt.
that's 3.
Jefferson?
Who?
Is Thomas Jefferson on?
That's 4. Y'all look good tonight. Y'all got all 4. I thought that would take a while. That was pretty good. All 4 presidents. So once you get one, all you got to do is think of Mount Rushmore means the best, or the most popular, the most recognized. Consequently, those are the 4 best. Now, if I were to ask you in any particular order, why are they there? Now, because I already gave away Stone Mountain. I said they were all killers, all vicious. I even gave you the hypothetical, if there was a 4th, who would it be? Which Keisha answered correctly. It would be Nathan Bedford Forrest, because he's just as much a killer as the rest of them. Just as vicious and dangerous as the rest of them. But it was only going to be 3. So those 3 got it. But if there was a 4th, you better believe it would have been Nathan Bedford Forrest. Not only do his due diligence in the Civil War, but right after that, he followed it up by what? Establishing what party?
Democrats.
No, I'm saying it wrong when I say party. Organization.
Not the Klan.
Of course.
Okay, it's the Klan.
Jesus.
But why are you saying it so soft? The Klan. He started the Ku Klux Klan.
Not clean.
He started the Ku Klux Klan in Pulaski, Tennessee. 1866, 1 year after the Civil War. He organized former generals and officers and said, it ain't over.
They still operating to this day.
You damn right they are. Go to Forsyth, Georgia. Try to get a house there. See what happens to it. You will meet the Ku Klux Klan.
Go to Crossway Boulevard
What?
in Brooklyn. Try to get a house
Try to get
there.
a house, try to take a walk in Forsyth.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, try to walk there after dark. Now, there are some black people that clean folks' houses and do things there, but they got to be out when the sun go down. So, but try to go there at night. Good luck. Forsyth County, Georgia. That's not far from Atlanta.
How
Ain't
far?
far.
How far is it from Atlanta?
Not far.
40 minutes.
Yeah, let's say 40,
Less than
50 minutes. Yeah, less than an hour.
That's a pretty way.
Yeah, just make a mistake going to Atlanta and go to Forsyth County.
Go the wrong direction.
You get all the business you want. You will get all the business you want. That'll hold you for a while. That kind of business.
Ask Oprah.
If you make it out, give me a call. We can talk.
So that means even if you got money and even if you ain't got money?
It ain't about no money.
Ask Oprah.
Right. It ain't about no money. You know, as a matter of fact, if it was about money, they would sell you a house because you're going to pay more than you would normally pay. It ain't about no money. So, so in any event, just tell me why. If anybody knows any of them, the Mount Rushmore people, tell me why they are considered Mount Rushmore types. Because as I said, we know why Stone Mountain, why they're there in the heart of the Confederacy. Because they're cold-blooded killers. And obviously, if they were around now, they wouldn't be fond of anybody in this room. So they're cold-blooded, and that's the way they navigated their life. What about the Mount Rushmore? Anybody? George Washington? Anything about George Washington that stands out that would put him on Mount Rushmore?
He was the first president. Lincoln,
He was the first president.
Lincoln saved the Union.
Wait. So you're saying with George Washington, it's because he was the first?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is right. He was the first and he was effective, certainly by his contemporaries. So he was the first. Lincoln what?
He saved the Union.
Lincoln saved the Union. That's Mount Rushmore, all the way.
Jefferson was like the intellectual father of America, so to speak.
He was an intellect, yeah, no doubt. I'm going to talk about him today. I got some stuff to say about Jefferson.
I have no idea about Roosevelt. Except
Okay.
that
Well, you got 3 out of 4. Give it a try.
Teddy Roosevelt. I got nothing.
It has nothing to do with the Rough Riders or anything like that. It's because, first of all, he did fight, people in his class because he comes out of a very rich family. He fought them in terms of monopoly capitalism, but the main thing he did while he's on Mount Rushmore, because he preserved things like Yosemite and the Grand Canyon and so many sites that America loves, it would not allow it to be bored. So that's why to this day, or 50 years from now, you can still go to Prospect Park, Central Park in New York, Yosemite, and all these other places because it's not for sale. Now everything else, obviously, real estate developers are taking everything that they can get their hands on. But things like that, you can't buy it. Now, things are always subject to change, but the way I see it, or the way it's been anyway, is that you can't buy those things. You know, some people have a few businesses there, obviously, because when you're in Yosemite Park, you will get hungry, and so there are stores and there are things available, and certainly souvenirs and all that stuff. But for the most part, it's going to always be public land for, or government land, government protected land.
Wasn't that sacred area for the natives?
Well, yeah, the Black Hills you're talking about in South Dakota, where Mount Rushmore is, yes, but they took it anyway. You know, the white man has a way of taking your land and compensating you.
It's happening around here.
You know, they'll compensate you in some way. It will be meaningless in the long run, whether it's some money or whether it's gambling, a casino here or something. But, you know, you're right, that actual land where Mount Rushmore is the Black Hills, and that is sacred to Native Americans. No question about it. Y'all pretty good on this geography stuff. That's good. I like that. But I can catch y'all with this one. You know, what's the seal of the Confederacy? It's three people. The seal of the Confederacy. That's a hard one, I'll admit that. Just think of three people that's great that came out of the South. That the Confederates would say, that's my guy. Now obviously it won't be anybody that later supported the Union or anything like that. This is people that were pro-planter class, you know, that agrarian, you know, thing. Anybody got a guess? Can figure? George Washington was one. They're all presidents. Thomas Jefferson, who comes out of that class, was the second one. And the last one is Andrew Jackson. Old Hickory.
He's the worst.
He, one of the most evil men, you know, one of the most evil men ever born. I mean, he's there. If you can name a more wicked white man than him, then you just good. You just good enough to have so many names.
His vice president, John C. Calhoun, Jefferson was afraid of him. He was so bad he had him incarcerated.
No, that's a good point. But
And actually, they just took his statue down in South Carolina.
so Keisha's saying John C. Calhoun, in case the Zoom audience wanted to hear that. For the record, the reason why I say he the wickedest is that he was the one that orchestrated the Trail of Tears.
Yes.
Now, obviously, white men, he did a whole lot of other stuff too in killing Native Americans, but the Trail of Tears, which I think was the worst. Even the Supreme Court at that time told him that that's against the law. You just can't uproot Native Americans from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and just move them halfway across the country to Oklahoma. You just can't do that at the butt of a gun. It's just illegal to take their land just like that and just move them. And when the Supreme Court told Andrew Jackson that, you know what he said? How many regiments are under your command? That's what he said. Now I know a president wouldn't talk like that today, but I'm talking about in the 1830s, damn it.
Yes, they,
How
yes,
about
they
Donald
will.
Duck? He didn't say something.
What's the name? What's the name of say?
Donald Duck, he said
Say that again?
The Don will
he
say.
said Donald
Oh, the
Duck.
Don. You
The
said the
Don will
Don.
He
say.
said Donald Duck did that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned his name, and I'm gonna tell you why. That's his idol. It's odd you mentioning Donald Trump, because his idol is Andrew Jackson.
I like that.
You mentioned it, that's his idol. When they asked him who was his favorite president in history, he said Andrew Jackson.
Bad boy.
How about this other Johnson president?
Andrew Johnson, he's the one that followed Abraham Lincoln when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. So he's the one. Andrew Johnson is, the brothers mentioning him. He was evil and dastardly because as soon as Lincoln was assassinated, he told the generals to give back all that land that was confiscated for African Americans, give all that damn land back to its original owners. So all that land that you see down south, so much of it, especially where we used to go, UAM, and that area we used to go to, South Carolina, off the South Carolina coast and Georgia coast, all that land that black folks had was taken. Some of it, we was able to purchase it, and all the original owners. Some of them was killed during the Civil War. Some just never came back. But you're right. Andrew Johnson did order generals and the so-called praying general, General Howard, to go down there and tell all them black people they're going to have to turn back over the land. So you all are mentioning some real dastardly presidents. I'm glad of that. And you're right about that. Johnson was one of them. And he was
A Democrat.
yeah, well, not only that, and I'm going to talk about some Democrats tonight. I'm going to mention some of them, and it's going to be intentional. The intentionality is there. So when I mention them. So anyway, in any event, since this is about America and the whiteness of America, and I'm glad y'all are mentioning people who stood out that America looks up to. And so all the people you mentioned, for one reason or another, they were worshipped and admired, and in legal circles, they're looked up to this very day. The very people you mentioned. And that's no lightweight thing. There were 13 Confederate states that were part of the Civil War. I'm going to mention them. You don't have to do all the mentioning. I'll mention them so that we'll all know them. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, Florida, Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Missouri. Now, I put asterisks near Kentucky and Missouri. Does anybody know why? The reason is they never officially left the Union. Did they send soldiers to fight for the Confederacy? Yeah, they did, but they officially never succeeded on an official level. Like South Carolina, North Carolina, they said, we out. Johnny, go get your gun. We ready. We gonna fight. But Kentucky and Missouri never officially did that, even though they were very supportive of the Confederate States of America. So let's keep that in mind. And with that came an attitude. And just to get ahead of myself, that was the Democratic Party, the party of slavery, the Democratic Party. I'm going to bring that up.
Say that again, what party?
The Democratic Party is the party of slavery.
How they became Republicans.
Yeah, we're looking at, that's down the road, but we'll get into that. Now, I want to juxtapose, when I say the whiteness of America, I want us to better understand America, because so many people, when they hear a case, Kendrick Johnson, Tawana Brawley, Sarah Bland, and all these cases, George Floyd, they're always surprised and say, I'm surprised this went down like that. And I'm saying there has to come a time when you have to stop being so surprised. When are you going to say, that's the order of the day? That's the 3/5 compromise. That's the decision to not respect a black man's rights. And you know the federal court case that's around, so I won't even get into that tonight, but we all know that, we all know who said that a black person has no rights that a white person is bound to respect. Is there anybody that don't know that? Okay,
A lot of people don't know that.
everybody knows.
A lot of people don't know that.
No, they don't know it, but these are things that we want to realize, and we all have to each one teach one. Each one reach one, each one teach one. So we should know these things. So I'm juxtaposing these ideas I'm going to share with you with the very things that Neely Fuller pointed out. And he said that the various areas include economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. He's saying that literally everything you do at any point during the day revolves around one of those 9 things. And he's accurate. If you can open up your mind and understand, you'll see that something you're doing involves those things. Now, Dr. John Henry Clark said it best when he said this, and we have people that like to philosophize, and use grandiose words. What's his name? The wordsmith, Michael Eric Dyson. You talking about a wordsmith that'll just mesmerize you with words. It's not that he's saying anything.
No.
It's just that he's excellent at using words. And words can fool you. Words can confuse you, befuddle you, and have you thinking your enemy's your friend and your friend is your enemy. You can do it and trick a person with words. But Dr. Clark was asked about the role of history. And this short little thing is something that I want to read to you because most professors would have been much more profound and it wouldn't have meant anything. But this is what Dr. Clark said. The role of history is to tell the people what they have been, where they have been, what they are, where they still must go, and what they still must be. I mean, better words were never spoken. He's saying that's what history is. History isn't something you study. It's telling you who you are. If you study history, guess what you study? Yourself. And now you're made better by that history. So that's why I always like Dr. Clark. Any class that he's in was a master class. And this is why, because of things like that. He's telling you your role, what you were, what you are, where you still must go, and who you ought to be. That's what he's saying. So he's not just talking about pyramids and great surgeries we did and silk robes and things that we walked around the earth winning 1,000 years ago. Talking about how to get you out of your present condition now. So let's be mindful of that when we talk about these great men, whether it's Mackey and one of the baddest brothers that ever lived, Amos Wilson, and Malcolm. Oh man, man. So there were 3 important documents that came out of the Revolutionary War, just to let you know how white folks think. I want to spend some time on things white folks do, but from an Afrocentric perspective, from a Pan-African perspective so that we'll know what we need to do. Because we got to counter. You know, Neely Fuller talks about the things we have to counter daily that they do, that it's our job to counter every day. Even your mistaken brother in the street who don't know who he is, lacks the knowledge of self, lacks the knowledge of what a civilized brother's, how he's supposed to comport himself. But you got to work with him. You got to find a way. Or he'll be knocking at your door and wanting what you got, and will take it if necessary, if you don't educate him. So if you catch him when he's like this, you got the opportunity. Because once he's like this, he might be a monster out there. All right? And it's no talking to him then. The talking is over. That should have happened a long time ago. So, what's the 3 documents that came out of the Revolutionary War? It's not a trick question. If you don't know it, then I'll give them to you. It's not a problem. One is the Bill of Rights. That came out of the Revolutionary War and the, Constitutional Congress. One was the Revolution. One was the Bill of Rights. What's another one?
Article of Confederation.
Yeah, that came out, but that's not one of the 3 major ones. But that was during the Articles of Confederation, and that did come out of those 2 sessions, going back to 1787. But there are 2 other documents.
Constitution.
That's one of them. That's also one. So you have the Declaration of Independence, and you have the Constitution. There's one missing.
You just said the
You said the Bill of
Rights.
Rights?
Oh, okay, then I gave you by accident. Yeah, the Bill of Rights. So that's all 3 of them. The Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and as you pointed out, Ray, the Constitution, which was the last and final piece. They had to convince each other, because you got to remember, America was 13 separate nations, and they had to convince every colony to come on board because they had a common enemy. Who was the common enemy? British. English. Britain was the problem, and Britain was exploiting America. And there were those who said things like no taxation without representation. What did Patrick Henry say?
Give me freedom and give me death.
That's basically it. To just put it in layman's terms, he said, give me liberty or give me death. That's what Patrick Henry said. If you want the whole thing, he says, I know not what course others will take, but as for me, give me liberty or death. When we get that mindset, we're going to be okay.
Facts.
When we get that mindset, like Dr. Collin, when we get that mindset, we're going to be okay. Now, if I'm offending y'all by saying Dr. Collin, just live with it. If that ain't your cup of tea, I understand. You might prefer Charles Rango. I understand. If that's your cup of tea, fine. But some of us like warriors. Some of us are comfortable being around the warrior class. Some of us don't like that. We want to be around people that's saying, can we all get along? Not can we get it on? So it's different mindsets, different strokes for different folks. But you're right, brother. Patrick Henry basically said in a nutshell, give me liberty or give me death. Because he had been dealing with it by that time, about somewhere between 10 and 12 years. So when he came to those meetings, he wasn't talking anymore. So to get in front of, Franklin and Washington, you know, people like that to get in front of Madison, Monroe, Jefferson, and get in front of them and tell them straight up, look, man, you know, I've been dealing with this 10, 12 years. Not taking it no more. He said, as for me, it's liberty or death. Now, where y'all at? You know, it shook up everybody. Because the time for talking is over. You don't run down a politician. I mean, maybe Keisha would, but most of us wouldn't run down a politician if they said right in front of you, well, we're going to have another discussion, as Ray Ray points out sometimes, on reparations. We're going to have a meeting on that this Saturday. You know, just be patient. Wait till Saturday. And you say, well, didn't you have one a few weeks ago?
For a few years.
Didn't you have one a few years ago? Well, we still meeting though. Why are we meeting? That's not what Patrick Henry said. Patrick Henry said, you know, the joke is wild. It's it. You know, it's that time. I'm going to get my stuff. I'm going to fight. So, in any event, here you have Jefferson, and I want to read a few things on Jefferson to let you know. Somebody earlier, I think it was Rajin, said that Jefferson was the intellectual representative of the founding fathers. Was that you, Raj? Said that? He's right. They were brilliant in their own way. Demonic is all outdoors, but brilliant. But the intellectual that they said, you go write the Declaration of Independence. This is a letter that we're sending to the King of England. Who's going to write it? They said, Thomas Jefferson. They said, you write it. We know how you get down. An intellect. It would have been Patrick Henry. He would have just said liberty or death. That's all. He would have said liberty or death. That's all. All them flowery words, y'all can miss me on that. I'm keeping it 1,000. So, but Jefferson did it another way. Jefferson was eloquent. And when he got down, he could write. You know, so these are the words. That don't mean he meant them. But these are the words of an intellect. He said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and what? That's the change. I knew you would say that. The pursuit of happiness. What was it before? Life, liberty, and property.
The pursuit of property or just property?
Property. The reason why they changed that language.
That's why white men get so much power, because they're the property owners. Nobody else has property with them.
See, now you undressing the founding fathers. How dare you? How dare you?
White men own property. They won't go and shop.
Right, but they want property, but they don't want to act like it's all about property. They changed the language. They said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Adams huddled with Thomas Jefferson and said, look, man, that's hardcore. Life, liberty, and property. You know, that's what we're about. Said, no, we got to change that. And they huddled and came up with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That's enough everybody out. Except for them.
Yeah, but you're not supposed to undress our founding fathers. You're not supposed to do that.
That's obtuse.
Right. We're supposed to accept them and just say, whenever, you know what white folks always say? When you talk about one of their heroes and you catch them in something, they always say, no, he was a man of his time. That's the way the thinking was at that time. So that's their excuse. So if you were to mention old Hitler, Andrew Jackson, they would say, no, There's nothing wrong with being Jacksonian. That was just the period he lived in. He came up hard. So that's why he was a killer. Because he came up hard. Well, you address that part. Because they said life, liberty, originally, and property. They changed it later to soften it and said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As if a white man is happy without no money in his pocket. They got people that lose money, they'll jump off the damn Empire State Building.
Right, when the stock market crashed.
Yeah. Man, if Bloomberg didn't have $100 billion and you told him your bank account is now $2 million, he'd jump off a damn roof. He said $2 million, he'd find somewhere to jump off something. He can't live with $2 million.
Take it from somebody.
He gonna get it back now. If he don't kill himself, he gonna get that money back.
So you mentioned Adams, out of all the presidents, or vice presidents, it took Adams to huddle and convince them that.
Yeah, because Jefferson was a better writer than that, and certainly Madison, John Adams, and all these guys. You know, you don't want to come hard all the time. You got to have a soft side on some things. And that language was a little bit too harsh. If you say it's about life, liberty, and property, then what do you say to a man that don't have property? He don't have cattle. He don't have land. He don't have tobacco. He don't have sugar. He don't have cotton.
He don't have slaves.
He don't have slaves. He don't have land. Now what do you say to him? You stripped him of his manhood. So they changed the language. The language was a little bit harsh.
They should have left it like life.
Because they wanted it to be an example. You know, as they say, a light shining on a hill. They wanted something that everybody can aspire towards, and it would be the light of the world. And the language that came out of the Revolutionary War, to say all men are created equal, the white man ain't never said that before. And didn't even mean it when he said it.
Thank you.
Now, what's the obvious way to prove that?
Because of George Floyd.
Well, George Floyd now, or us then. We were in chains.
Men.
How are you going to say, how could Jefferson say with a straight face, all men are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights? I hold these truths to be self-evident. What does self-evident mean?
Clear.
Obvious.
Clear, obvious. In other words, we don't have to reason. Self-evident means it's obvious.
Undisputed.
It's undisputed. We got a wordsmith in here. You better not be like Eric Michael Dyson, just throwing out words that don't mean it.
What's going on with that, boy?
But that's good though. That's what self-evident means. It's obvious.
To a blind man.
So we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator, with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and then the pursuit of happiness, instead of life, liberty, and property. So, you know, a different mindset. I want you to understand this white mindset, because we can't go from 0 to 100 to George Floyd without understanding what's been ingrained in us from the beginning. And I'm gonna get the Hochul. I know somebody wants to say, what about Hochul? Yeah, give me a few minutes and I'll mention Hochul. Ray, I know you think I could read Ray and say, yo, I want to hear him say something about the governor. Yeah, I'll say something about the governor. So, the founding fathers stood on that document, but like I said, they had to convince 13 separate colonies to unite to fight the British. So they declared their independence. And guys like Patrick Henry, and of course they became legends, George Washington and Franklin, Madison, Hancock, Jefferson, they all became heroes, and the founding fathers, and you know, so many of them. It's 20 some odd names, and
In the street we on now, Quincy.
yeah, John Quincy Adams, and you know, it's a lot, you know, it's a lot, and like I said, and I'm not denying their greatness to each other. I don't think they're great because you can't tell me, you know, when people describe George Washington, they'll say he was very moral and upright, very spiritual. So how can you be spiritual and say you own this woman?
To who?
How moral can you be when you say anything that comes out of her womb is mine? So don't tell me, well, he was just a man of his times and that's how they thought then. You know you don't own her. How can you just go into her anytime you feel like it? Or you threaten her with death or whipping and starvation and all sorts of tortures. Ain't no morality there. But we are taught these are all moral men.
A different concept of God.
But I'm not saying that. And so if I use the term founding fathers, they ain't our founding fathers. And I don't look at them as founding fathers, but they're so-called founding fathers. They were the leaders that established America. And so if there's any just due, it's just because they established something that was great in their eyes, but to develop a system and a history of chattel slavery, which has never been done before. People always say, oh, there was slavery in the Bible. There was slavery in Africa. It was slavery in ancient Kemet. Slavery in China. There's never been a chattel slavery system like we experienced in America. So all of us, in one way or another, survivors. If you're from the Caribbean, you're a survivor. If you're from the continent of Africa, you're a survivor. If you're from America and your line goes back generations and generations here in America, you're still a survivor because your parents made it through hell. Your great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents made it through hell. And our job is to rectify some things that they tried to do but didn't do, which is, hopefully, I can explain at some point during this lecture George Floyd, and nobody will be surprised. Because I'm going to show you in a simple way how we got there. With respect to the founding fathers, I'll just say that their stand against England was based on natural rights. They took a position and stood on natural rights, that these were inalienable rights. These were God-given. They're natural. This is not something you have to petition for. This is not something where a vote is required for. So what Patrick Henry said was absolutely correct. There comes a time where it's liberty or death. You know, there's no compromise.
Ain't mentioned no Indians at all.
Well, it's hell what they did to them, but
There wasn't no Indians.
you know, again, but I want to get up. I'm just in colonial America just for a couple more minutes, and then we're gonna just end the Civil War, and then we'll deal with all these things that happened since we've been allegedly free. Let's just establish that that there did come a time where America abolished the importation of slaves from Africa. They tried it in 1987. They tried then because it was during the Constitutional Congress when all these ideas were coming to the fore. And they said, well, you know, now, just in case somebody missed it, I didn't say they were trying to abolish slavery. I said they were trying to abolish the importation of slavery
Bringing more
from Africa and Caribbean. They felt that 4.5 million was enough slaves. And so, if you want a slave, buy one. If you want more slaves, make it. And let's be clear that even if you, as a white man, got a black woman pregnant, her offspring were slaves. And you treated them just like the rest. More often than not, they got the same treatment. So I'm just saying that to say that in 2 states, interesting enough, that fought against that because they still wanted to import slaves was Georgia, and who's the other one? Next door neighbor, South Carolina. Those were the 2 that said, no. The importation still goes on. Damn it, we still sending ships over there to get Africans and bring them to these shores. So that went on for another 20 years. Then eventually in 1808, they decided, okay, enough is enough. Legally, it's unacceptable. Now, illegally, they still did it. Don't get me wrong. But in 1808, it was officially abolished, the importation of slaves into America.
What year was that?
1808. So the 20 years that it was argued, South Carolina and Georgia were the ones that said we will not sign any documentation. And you need all 13 colonies to help you against the British. So even after the war, South Carolina and Georgia was like, no. I'm against that. You know, we want to bring them in, we bring them in. And it's that simple. So that went on for another, till 1808 is when it was officially abolished. And again, those who are writing it down, it was officially abolished. That don't mean that there were not so-called pirate ships
Still going over
that still did.
De facto.
Yeah. So, you know, just on an official level, it was abolished in 1808. So whatever you got there was there. And that was supposed to be it in a nutshell. So the colonial period was a period where during that time you could not, and just in case you don't know, you could not outright free slaves. You had to get permission. Are we all clear on that? You can't say, you know what, you can't look at 50 slaves and say, you know what, I just had what is it called? An epiphany? I just had an epiphany and God told me to let y'all go, to free y'all. Do you think white people allow you to let 50 black people just wander the streets and go about their business? Just because you said, you know, I whipped y'all enough, I done raped half of your daughters enough, I'm tired. You think that, no. They got a law. You got a petition. You got to go to them and get permission to let them go. So, you know, just in case, you know, people say, well, why'd they keep? You had to keep them, you had to get permission. You had to go through some stuff to just say, you know, y'all can leave, just in case you don't know that. You know, but that's the way it was. Now, Thomas Jefferson wrote a book, and that's how I told you I was going to get to Jefferson. He wrote a book called Notes on the State of Virginia. Now, most of the early presidents all came out of Virginia, from George Washington on. So he wrote a book on it, and this is what his thinking about black people was, and you'll see that there was no resistance from the church. There was no resistance from community groups. This is what he said, some of the things he said about black people. Blacks were naturally inferior, or they are a product of generations of slavery. So in other words, he said they're either inferior or they're a product of generations of slavery. He went on to say blacks look and smell like orangutans. Y'all know that's a monkey, apes. He said that's what they look like. He said we don't think blacks can't write poetry or stories. Well, he ain't never heard blacks do the dozens, play the dozens. Nobody can tell stories better than black folks. But he said we can't do stories and we can't write poetry. We have poor memories. Blacks can sing and make music. They provide good labor. But he warned white men not to engage in sexual relationships with black women.
Oh, no.
Jefferson.
Say that again.
He warned white men not to engage in sexual activities with black women, and you didn't even hear the kicker, because they are animals. This is Jefferson's word. This ain't me.
So he practiced bestiality.
He's saying that if you do it, you practice bestiality. He loved Sally Henderson and other black women. The lust was, I mean, it was just so obvious that his wife knew. His wife couldn't stand Sally Henderson. But he told his wife, don't you put your hands on her. That's mine.
That's my girl.
That's right, and that's why when he went to France, who he took with him?
A lot of them didn't like the women because they knew what they was doing.
For a time.
Well,
What?
I'll leave it to Ray Ray during the Q&A to answer that one.
Turn on Esther. What did you say?
You know, now Jefferson said, you know, Jefferson had a little epiphany. And during his epiphany, this is what he said. He said, indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just. Saying he trembled. In other words, if God is just, we in trouble. Went on to say, if God is just, his justice cannot sleep forever. The Almighty has no attributes which can take sides with us in such a conflict. You see what he's saying? Even he's saying, look, God ain't with us. This stuff we doing, God is not with us. This Jefferson talking. This ain't me. I can tell Ray to come up here and read it. And I can show you where he said it in his book, Notes on the Scandal. Notes, not Notes on the Scandal. Notes on the State of Virginia. This is it. That's the only book he really wrote. He said it. This ain't me talking. And I ain't talking bad about if that's your favorite president. Or if you went to Thomas Jefferson High School. I ain't talking about, I'm telling you what he said. Okay, and you know what? Let me get to Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker read what he said.
Yeah.
And I got to give some props to my brother here, Raj, because I was just doing this thing on Jefferson, and I said to myself, I said, man, Mike, I said, what's the brother's name I said, who did the parameters of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital? And I couldn't remember. I said, oh man, I said, because he wrote a letter to Jefferson. I said, because I said to myself, I said, damn it, we need somebody to respond. And I said, Martin Delaney wasn't around yet, and Nat Turner, who was already killed already. I said, man, we need somebody to say something. And I said, what's the brother's name who wrote that letter? And I said, oh man, I got brain locked. My head was all messed up. I said, I gotta call somebody real quick. And I was gonna call Trust. But I said, no, it's too early. I can't call Trust. I called his brother. Hey, I said, brother, just a quick question now. Who did the parameters of Washington, D.C.? And right away, he gave me the answer. Rod said he's a surveyor and an astronomer. Rod said, you talking about Benjamin Banneker? I said, brother, that's all I needed, brother. I said, that's all I needed. I said, I know what he wrote. I said, that's all I needed. And he said, we'll talk later. But he gave me that. Thank you, brother, because sometimes we got brain lock, and it take a minute. You say, man, why can't I remember his name? And that's not a name you run across every day, Banneker. I mean, you might run into somebody named Ben or Benjamin, but you don't run into many Bannekers. So for that 1 second, I said, man, the brother made a clock out of wood. Exactly. He looked at a pocket watch. They had pocket watches then, not wrist watches. He looked at a pocket watch and looked at the gears, the way they moved. This brother was so brilliant, he looked at a pocket watch and cut up some wood and made a thing that they said still works perfectly to this day.
Photogenic memory.
So, I mean, you talking about incredible. Now, other brothers, and I remember Harold telling me and others that he's from the Doggons. And that history kind of bears that out, that he has a relationship with those brothers in Africa that can see stars that you can't see with the naked eye. That's how strong. And since Banneker had that astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, he had that in him, and he was a mathematics whiz, and it helped him as a surveyor. And this is why he was able to do Washington, D.C. after all those other Europeans failed. They couldn't do it, because how do you know 10 miles this way, 10 miles this way, so in the middle, where nobody can claim that as a state, it'll be an independent capital. It needs to be independent. After all these white folks failed, they went and got Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker knew the stars and knew where they were. So he didn't need the landmass. He didn't need, you know how you driving sometimes and you got to see a certain building. You say, oh, I make this turn right after I see this building. Or I see this. What's it called?
Landmarks.
Landmarks. He didn't need landmarks. Thank you, sister. He didn't need landmarks. He saw the sky. His best work was done at what time? At night. When everybody else was lost. Ain't that something? Now this was the brother that challenged Jefferson. Thank you. Jefferson. Let me tell you what he wrote. You talking about a bad brother? Let me tell you what he wrote. Banneker penned a 1,400-word letter, and I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to read some of it. A a 1,400-word letter to Thomas Jefferson, who at that time was the Secretary of State. He ain't talking to a white businessman.
Trailer park.
He talking to a cat who's right next to the president. All right? Jefferson was the third president. He was the Secretary of State. You one step at that time, you one step away from the White House. He wasn't talking about no Johnny Lately, a Mo, Larry, or Curly. He's talking to the next president of America. This is what he said to him. He said, I apprehend that you will readily embrace every opportunity to eradicate that train of absurd and false ideas and opinions which you so generally prevail with respect to us. You know, talking all that stuff about we look like apes and we smell like apes, animals.
Like that.
And he went on to say, and that you sin, and that your sentiments and concurrent, your sentiments are concurrent with mine, which are that one universal Father have given being to us all. In other words, we're all from God. And that however variable we may be in society or religion, however diversified in situation or color, we are all the same family and stand in the same relationship to Him. Now, I just cut it short because it's 1,400 words. The elegance, the way he said that, he said, you better take every opportunity to change these absurd ideas. Do you realize he said that at a time when you can't even look at a white man in his eye? Okay? This was the late 1700s. And he said that to him. He said, your ideas are absurd.
But you know what? Listen to his language. His verbiage was that of a college or a professor.
Exactly. As a matter of fact,
To enslaved men.
do you know what Jefferson said?
Because he wrote it back. All right, tell him.
Jefferson did write it back. Go ahead, Keith. Let's see. You need to get up here and I could just sit down. He wrote him back. He said, basically, when he wrote him back, he said, first of all, I don't subscribe to believing, and I'm going to downplay your role in the accuracy of all your almanacs. He was doing the almanacs. See, you don't need almanacs now because you listen to the weather report every day. The almanacs will tell you when to plant, when not to plant. You know, they know harvest time is important. You live or die off the harvest. And so everybody buying this black man's almanacs all over the country, all over the world. As a matter of fact, he predicted the solar eclipse in 1789 was predicted by Benjamin Banneker. Not some white person. Benjamin Banneker did that. So when he said what he said to Jefferson, he said, Jefferson wrote back saying, I believe you had assistance on the almanacs. I don't believe you did it.
Insult.
I believe you had assistance in your almanacs. And he said, I believe that the words you were using, you got assistance on that too.
Exactly.
Can you believe that? here, you are, as Raj described, you're supposed to be the intellect among the elite class.
The creme de la creme?
The creme de la creme. Or as Ray Ray calls it, the coupe de ville. That's his language. Ray Ray called it the coupe de ville. That's what he do. Ray Ray's sister back there, she knows. That's how Ray Ray talk. He say, that's the coupe de ville. Well, Jefferson spent his whole life thinking he was the coupe de ville. And he found out that a black man without cursing can just smack him all over the place. And call his ideas absurd.
Exactly.
And say, you better embrace my ideas. And use every opportunity to say that you were wrong. And then if you went all the way to the end of it, he says, your dear humble servant. After he smacked him around. That's like automatic, smacking somebody around the courtroom, and then at the end, he says to the judge, Your Honor, the courtroom is yours again. After he done sliced everybody up. He said, Your Honor, this is your courtroom again, and I'll just sit there. That's what Benjamin Banneker did to Thomas Jefferson. So all you Thomas Jefferson fans out there, take that one. You gotta eat that. A black man told you off in plain sight, and you have to downplay and dismiss his work and saying, somebody helped you with that. As a matter of fact, this letter you constructed, somebody probably helped you with that. That's what he said. In other words, and then oddly enough, when Benjamin Banneker died, he had a mysterious house fire. So all of his works and writings were gone. So we're lucky we have this document that he wrote to the Secretary of State, Thomas Jefferson. Or we wouldn't know how brilliant he was. Even though we do have the almanacs and things like that.
You sure they might not have it stashed somewhere?
Well, well, look, hey, every time 25, 50 years go by, they say, well, in another 25 years, we'll tell you who killed Kennedy. They keep pushing it back and pushing it back. And eventually, there'll come a time where they'll say, look, they'll say, well, what happened with Dr. King was such and such, and it was ordered by so-and-so. They'll say that maybe within the next 100 years, they'll admit about Dr. King. Because by then, the Negroes that they'll produce by then won't even mind. They won't even mind. What you said, they don't care?
They don't care now. Mention Dr. King, they go what?
Yeah. Well, somebody told me before they saw Malcolm's name and they said Malcolm 10. They didn't even know the X, and the X, had a meaning. But so, I'm just saying that to say that that when a white man who's supposed to be the intellectual of intellectuals meets a black man who's superior to him, he says, no, somebody helped you write that. You didn't write that. Somebody helped you. And somebody else predicted that solar eclipse that you so accurately said it would happen on such and such a day. That was luck too. And all the almanacs you wrote over all these years. That was all luck that somebody else did. That's the way he trivialized Benjamin Banneker.
It sounds like trouble on mama.
You're right.
What you say, Ms. D?
It sounds like the conflict between Donald Trump and Obama.
Okay.
Donald Trump was
Yeah.
intimidated.
So, in any event,
Obama is no Benjamin Banneker.
oh, no. Far from
He's
it.
smarter
Who's
than
that?
Far from it.
You mean Barry Santoro?
Yeah, he used to be
Obama
called
is not
that.
an intellect whatsoever.
Now, just want to quickly, because it's almost 9 o'clock and I know Ray said 9:30.
Nah,
So,
Doc ain't here, so you know.
oh really?
You can't come here in an emergency.
Lawyers are.
Okay, then I might get into all of this.
Yeah, you can roll.
So we could do a UAM thing, and we could be here till 11 o'clock.
This one gonna be his
She said, not me. I can look at her face.
So
I can look at Keisha. She already said, not me, not 11 o'clock.
Hey, Mike, real quick. Jefferson was a liar and a phony intellect. He knew the deal. He translated Volney's Ruins of Empires into English. Jefferson knew the deal. He was hanging out with top shelf intellects that was giving him the story. Harrison and Banneker and Latimer were students, autodidacts. So that guy, Jefferson, is as fake as you can get. We were talking about Cuomo and how that idiot Chris Cuomo, you said he was smart. These are fake intellects.
He sounds smart.
They get their intellect from others. He's accusing Banneker of his own existence.
Plagiarism.
Okay, then he's guilty of what he accused Jefferson of. So in that sense, that's amazing, you know, the way you look at it. But I would just say that for all of those guys who were in a room, you're talking about 50 people. Every colony, all 13 colonies, had at least a minimum of 3 representatives at any given time. At any given time, they might have 3 to 4 representatives. So the room always had somewhere around 50 people in it. That's why when the Moors try to say that they were a Moor, what's his name? His name is on the tip of my tongue. Who was the first black president? It's not true. They have, and they come with a fake picture. The facts are they have portraits, more than enough portraits, because they didn't have pictures then. If the Continental Congress, what? Yeah, Hanson. If John Hanson was alive in the 1770s and 1780s, when the issues of the day was being debated, did they have photography then?
No.
They didn't have photography until like around the 1830s. And it was popularized then, so by the time people started getting cameras, it was well into the 30s and the 40s when people started getting cameras. So anything you see before 1830 is a portrait. It's a drawing. It's not a photograph. So Moors would show you a picture of a black man around all these white guys. Say, really? In the 1780s? Y'all had pictures then? Remember the Moor one showed a picture of a queen during the colonial period. This was like the 16 or 1700s. And they showing photographs. Say there were none. Oh, no, we got a picture. Say, how do you have a picture when there were no pictures? Come on. Come on now.
They use Moorish science.
So, how could Hanson be the first of about 7 or 8 of them because they all stayed in office for 1 year. As the head of that board, it was a board of the main representative.
You're talking about Reconstruction period.
No, I'm talking about during the Revolutionary War. Way before by the Reconstruction period, we already had a constitution and we had codified laws and all that stuff. At this time, there was none of that. Each state did its own thing, and they were just coming around to saying, look, if hypothetically a slave was in Virginia and he managed to get up north and he got to Philadelphia, the state of Pennsylvania, has to bring him back to his own. They were doing that, but that wasn't written, it was word of mouth. It was, I am Virginia, your courtesy to me is my courtesy to you. I will return yours and you return mine. And then those became codified laws in each state, in Virginia, obviously North Carolina, Georgia, and all of them. They became laws. And then eventually the fugitive slave law, which position was taken by Martin Delany, mainly about, any black man that's a runaway, you can feel comfort coming to my house. And if any white man dare ask me about a runaway slave in my house, he said, if I don't lay him a lifeless corpse, he said, may the heaven refuse me a resting place. I mean, you can't get more hardcore than that.
That's what Dave Walker appealed was.
Dave Walker was of that war. He's from the warrior class. Dave Walker. So you're talking about a period. You're talking about a period where slavery was king. When a David Walker appeal went out, when you would get even some strong statements by Fred Douglass and others, not as strong as Mark Delaney's, but certainly noteworthy. His July the 4th speech is it has no equal in terms of a speech. When he told white folks, how dare you invite me to your festival while my brothers and sisters are in chains and they under the sting of the whip, and you want me to come here and enjoy your July the 4th. He said that your practices, your daily practices, would embarrass a nation of savages. That's how deep Fred Douglass got with that July the 4th speech. So in any event, let me just go through some things since Ray gave me a little more time, and Keisha, I won't be 11, but I'm gonna go through some things real quick, and then we'll just start some Q&A. Whoever wants to ask questions, we'll do that real quick. In the Civil War was 1861 to 1865, was the Civil War. And obviously that's the war that we won our freedom. But during that time, in 1862, there was an act that Lincoln did that was incredible. And the act was called the Homestead Act. Anybody knows that act? The Homestead Act.
About giving property to, to free slaves.
Oh man, why did you say that? No, you're way off on that, but you was right about the land. You was right about the land. Lincoln gave federal land to any citizen. So to be a citizen, what did you have to be?
White.
White.
Say it loud. Ain't nobody gonna do nothing to you. You had to be white.
And male.
A white male. A white male adult, if there's a few things in it, a few protocols. For one thing, you had to stay on the land for 5 years. You was given 160 acres of land. Just imagine that. See, it's hard to even conceive what one acre is. 160 acres of land would make you rich. 160 acres of land. But the catch was, it was a small little filing fee. So everybody could pay that. Small little filing fee. You had to be an adult. You had to be a citizen. In other words, you had to be a white man.
Period.
Right? You had to be a white man. And you had to stay on the land at least 5 years before you could sell it. You had to live there. But the other thing was, you could not bear arms against America. That was the catch.
Stipulation.
In other words, the stipulation was, if you bore arms against the United States government, you was not eligible for that land grant. Okay? So, when we wonder why white folks are rich, it ain't hard. How hard is it to be rich if somebody giving you 160 acres of land? All you had to do was establish, or not even have to establish it, if nobody could say, yo, this was a Confederate soldier. He fought against the United States of America. You got the land. How could you not succeed? It's hard to fail when somebody gives you 160 acres of land.
Even if you came in rags.
Yeah, you're gonna be rich. So so you had that. We're gonna go through some things. That's the Homestead Act. That was 1862. Let's keep going. The same way the city government gives privileged individuals land for $1. They'll give them a building. They'll give them, what's that area over there at Flushing?
Williamsburg.
The what?
Williamsburg?
No, the area in Flushing going towards downtown. What was that
Dumbo,
area
Dumbo.
called? No, not Dumbo. What was that area called, Keisha?
Full Green, Farragut, Navy Yard.
The Navy Yard.
Navy Yard.
How do people get that for $1? How could you get a big chunk of that for $1? Ain't that the same thing? Still privileged to this day.
So Mike, you saying, I thought it was, that homestead was also for the union, anybody that was in a union soldier.
You didn't have to be a Union soldier, even though that would have been at least a reward for guys that fought to keep the country one country. That would have been a good reward, and I'm sure some of them took advantage of it. I'm sure of that. But if you just did not take up arms against America, you can be rich in a few years if you felt like, if you worked hard. 160 acres? Okay, so that was the Homestead Act. Oh, remember that. And he gave that out while America was at war. So it wasn't in times of ease and comfort. He did that during then because he wanted people to go west.
Go west, young man.
Go west, young man. Now, if you have to kill some Native Americans,
No problem.
it's no problem. We will have certain city governments where every, what do you call that? Scalp. Every scalp you turn in, you will get $5. And to get that man's scalp, what do you have to do?
Cut his head.
You gotta kill him. You get $5. So, in any event, that was done in 1862. Let's talk about, in 1865, the end of the Civil War. Then came those 3 amendments, the 13th, 14th, and the 15th. What was the 13th? What did the 13th Amendment do?
Slavery.
What was slavery?
Abolish.
It abolished slavery. Very good. What about the 14th?
Citizenship.
Citizenship. You sure? Because you're doing it like
Yes,
citizen. Absolutely. It has some other things in it, but you're right. The primary thing was citizenship. And the 15th? No, you got to be more specific on this one.
13, 14.
You're right about the voting. You just got to be specific. It gave the black man the right to vote. Not black people, the black man.
Not white women.
White women did not get that for another 50 years. The 15th came in 1870. They could not vote until 1920. They got the right to vote. So you're talking about 50 years later, the white woman got the right to vote. White men know how to control and oppress white women. You can believe that. So that's 13, 14, the 15th Amendment. What about the black codes? Black codes, Jim Crow, from 1865 on. What would the black codes look like?
Can't stand on the corner. No talking to each other. 3 people.
Well, that came along later with the convict leasing. They just used any excuse to lock you up then. But with the black codes, it was segregation, it was discrimination, it was
Restriction.
it just restricted you from literally everything, like you said. Assembly, public assembly, it restricted that. So that's the black code and Jim Crow laws,
Also,
which ill-affected voting, which ill-affected your ability to negotiate land and property.
interracial marriages.
Oh yes, that was forbidden. That didn't change until, in Alabama, I think, when did they change the interracial marriage? I think 2003. Negroes got real happy then. In 2003. That's a little over 20 years ago.
That's right, brother.
He over there smiling.
Coming,
2003.
brother.
He said it was perfectly legal now. 2003 is legal now. So, you know, that took a long time, you know, so during that time with the black codes and various restrictions, your marriage wasn't, there was no sanctity to your marriage. You didn't have parent-child relationships. So your children could be disciplined by any white man walking by. And if he told you, don't do this or don't do that, you had to do it. If a white man said, come over here, boy, take these boxes off the truck for me, you had to do it. But you was free. But free from what? Not from his tyranny, not from his oppression. Any black man, any white man can get you arrested and say that boy right there owes me money. Now you in jail, you're in the convict leasing program. The convict leasing camps were all over. Don't blame it on Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. They were in Kentucky, Louisiana, everywhere you can mention. If a factory came to a local sheriff and said, Sheriff, in 3 weeks, I need 150 Negroes for my mines and for my factory. Guess what he got? 150. If he said 300, he would get 300. Do you know they have documented cases where 6-year-old children were locked up? So you're saying, Brother Michael, man, you're making that up.
Nope.
60-year-old children who went to the store with their parents might have taken a piece of candy off the counter, got locked up, prosecuted, and taken to a work camp.
Yes.
60 years old, 8 years old, 11, taken there. They got black men who was accused of,
Walk into the store,
what do you call that if you walk in and you're in a building that you don't belong there? Loitering and trespassing, things like that. Do you know you would do hard time for that? They could catch you in town and say, boy, where do you work? And you say you don't have a job. They got you. They'll lock you up for loitering. What are you doing here without a job? What are you doing here? That's it, boy. Come with me. So, you would be better off, Ray, if I asked you as a sheriff, where do you work? You better say, I work for Rajiv. And if I ask him where he worked, he better say, I work for Keisha.
yes.
If you say, nah, I don't have a job, why would you say that? You're in a world of trouble, man. Legal. Now you're in a world of trouble. You think if you call Obama, he would fix that for you?
Barry Santoro.
He'll tighten the loose.
Let me tell you something about every president, whether Republican or Democrat. From the end of slavery, all the way, once the convict leasing started, that very year, it went all the way until the 1930s, where FDR finally addressed it. The NAACP, for decades, complained to the president. I'll give it to him. They showed a level of activism then. The NAACP and Urban League and all of them did go to the president and say, sir, they got 6-year-old children in a convict leasing camp working. They didn't do anything. They claimed they took a piece of candy. 6 months later, they still in that camp. Grown men been there 10, 12 years. They died from dysentery or explosions in mines, cave-ins, all kind of stuff. What are you going to do about that? That's the way it went down. So, it took years. The first and only president to even listen to was FDR. No president, I mean, you try to go to Woodrow Wilson and ask him about that. Are you kidding? Woodrow Wilson, Woodrow Wilson fired postal workers and everything when he was black, when he got in. And black folks helped vote for him. Soon as he got in, he showed his true colors. So I say to you, when I say, what is whiteness in America? You say, well, that's an extreme case, what happened to George Floyd. Then you explain to me, how did churches go to a meeting right after church, they still had on their Sunday clothes, and saw a lynching, and had their family. A lynching was a family affair. Huh? It was a family affair. It was a part of the culture. A lynching wasn't something legal where you got to whisper it. Legal was young, man. They hanging that N-word right over here.
Next week it's gonna happen.
Yeah. It's a part of the culture.
There's a book right there, he's talking about sanctuary.
Yeah, Without Sanctuary, 100 Years of Lynching, those kind of books is all documented. Those not secrets. As a matter of fact, the guy who put those pictures together, you know where that idea first came from? A guy was in a store in the South. He was in a store and he saw a postcard. And the postcard had a picture of a lynching. And it wasn't just a picture of a black man being lynched. He was in the encirclement of people that had on church attire. Or their Sunday best, whatever that might be. And he said, he saw that picture, then he saw another one. And he said to the guy, are these things available? The guy said, sure. Is it available? I sell them. He said, I got plenty of these. And he said, if you go over to so-and-so's, he got way more than I do. And the guy got all those things together. He started going all the places and put them in a book. That's where that came from. A guy who just went into a store and couldn't believe the postcard and said, is that for sale? The guy said, yeah, I'll sell it to you. I got plenty of them. He showed him another one, and then he started showing him. He said, oh, if you're interested, I'll show you a lot more. And that's how it happened. How can I say it to you? Lynchings were not a secret. I know they call the KKK a secret society. White Citizens Council. It wasn't nothing secret. It's not secret. It's a family affair. It's a church affair. It's part of the religion. There's no separation with, what do they call themselves now? Christian nationals.
Republican Party.
Christian nationals. That's what, what's the one from Georgia? Marjorie Green? Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG. She calls herself a Christian nationalist. Christian nationalist. Is there any difference in the Ku Klux Klan?
No.
So we have to understand the mentality, and I'll open it up now. Let's get some Q&A, starting with Zoom. Let's go with Zoom first.
Anybody Zoom got a question for Mike? Zoom audience, anybody got a question?
Okay, Raj.
Okay, the thing about Thomas Jefferson and the property thing, and they made him change it, don't you think that they made him change it because life, liberty, and property was clearly stating their goal to take all that land that was later to become the United States? And my second comment is, you forgot to mention that Benjamin Banneker was light-skinned.
Okay, well here's what. But I did mention his link to Africa with the doggone.
Okay.
But here's what. I would say, say the question, the first part of that question.
About Thomas Jefferson concerning the removing of property
Of the land, yeah.
Right.
Okay, let me just say it this way. If you say that life, liberty, and property, that's specific to a specific class, because you putting class in it now. Everybody did not own property.
Right.
And some people's property was so small that they were still considered literally indigent. They didn't have gravy to put on their biscuits. They didn't have much in the way of wealth. They were barely eating. So if you just limited things to the land, life, liberty, and land, you're speaking to a certain class and saying, instead of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In other words, you have life. You're free. You have liberty. We're not addressing African slaves. You're a white man and you're free. You're an adult. You can make it. That's basically what they're saying. Now, it's hypocritical, obviously, from our perspective, because if you say we have inalienable, God-given rights, then that should include us. What about our God-given natural rights?
You got it.
So, you making a statement to your British detractors. You making a statement to them saying, we on equal footing. You are not superior to me. I'm not claiming superiority over you. We're equals. And if not, we go to the mat. We go to war. And it's that simple. So that's why they wrote it that way. You know, the language was a little more flowery and not harsh to say it that way. And so it was accepted. And you got to remember, it has to be in a way that can be accepted among all the colonies. You talk about uniting 13 colonies against one bully across the pond. And this bully has been in charge for a long time. And you're talking about people you have to remember. Do you know that even though George Washington and others were rich aristocracy, they considered themselves, many of them, Brits. They considered themselves English. The same way you would get an Italian American today, you say to them, what are you or who are you? They say, I'm Italian American. Their family hasn't been in Italy in 60, 70, 80 years, maybe 100 years.
Never went back.
But they still identify with their heritage. So, George Washington and many, there were many that were among the aristocracy and many that was doing okay, that still considered themselves British. How do you infuse them with patriotism to make them say, I'm a Virginian, I'm a Carolinian? How do you get them to do that? You pump them up with patriotism, and you develop that sense over years, and then you use people who starts questioning, why are we paying taxes all the way over there? Why are there such high tariffs on things we produce here? Why are we giving X number of tons of cotton to them when we can manufacture it ourselves and sell it to them for our price? We can sell it all over Europe at our price, not at the king's price. So, you know, it was a whole thing to it, you know, long before the Boston Tea Party and all those other things. They were developing a sense of nationalism where it was starting to fade away, that British thing. They still spoke English. English was the language, but they were developing a sense of nationalism. And that was a long thing.
They wasn't going back to England.
They wasn't going back. They made too much money here. Why would they go back?
Well, they dumped them How did they get out of there? They wasn't
Hey,
doing too good over
Look,
there.
they were using other English people. They were getting them out of jail, bringing them here as concubines and servants and indentured servants and slaves. And the Irish, they were using them. So it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing of not only forced servitude, but it was a sense of developing a real spirit of nationalism. This is your land, and that you should not be sending X number of dollars monthly to the King of England. He's not doing anything. As a matter of fact, we're shipping things to him, and he's charging us when they get shipped back. Mm-hmm. And the stand back and all these other things that precipitated the war was going on because they had attacks on paper, attacks on stamps. They was just bleeding America. And these guys were fed up with it. So that's why that Declaration of Independence had to be strong but suitable to all the other colonies, because they could not allow this document to create disharmony among the 13 colonies that had to unite to beat the best army in the world. And at that time, Britain was the most formidable army in the world at that time. Yes, brother.
So they sent, when they created the colonies, Britain, right? Yeah. They were sending some of the worst, I understand, people here.
Yes, they flushed the jails.
And also, I see the Dutch own a lot of.
Yes, especially here in New York.
Right. So I guess they was carving up America then.
Yeah, no doubt. The Dutch were key players, especially in the early years. Going back to the late 1500s and early 1600s, they were playing a key role in shipping Africans. The Dutch. There's no question about it. And as a matter of fact, that area in the Wall Street area was an area where we were, and the Dutch had us there, and the Dutch gave some of the land. When they left, they left it in some black hands, some of the land. You know, England would never do that. The British didn't do that. So, you know, and they had their run-ins and fights with the British. Right in Manhattan, they fought, you know, several times. So I would just say that to get the unity, and that was hard, you got 13 separate governors that were appointed from England to all get together at a round table with their delegates and to decide, you know, the delegates or whoever the proxy was, to decide how we're going to reshape this thing. And we're going to make it ours. It's going to be our thing. Not their thing. It's going to be our thing. As a matter of fact, that's one of the names of Costa Nostra. That's the translation. Our thing. That's what Costa Nostra means. Our thing, our war. Our thing.
And there's an understanding that some blacks, will you finish? Oh, but
go ahead.
I also understand that when there was during the Revolutionary War, that there was blacks that got their freedom because they fought on the side of British.
And where did they go? Come on.
Europe.
You said it. They took them to Sierra Leone. The blacks who fought now, obviously, England didn't win that Revolutionary War, but they kept their word.
They did.
To the blacks, they told the blacks, we need you to fight with us. They just couldn't get enough. Too many blacks fought on America's side. Why would you fight on America's side if America got you in chains? You be better off going with the man who say, look, man, we win this. I got you. I got something for you. I'll take you home. If we win and we stomp these cats, I'm going to take you home. England took them to Sierra Leone. Said, we lost, but guess what? We gave you our word. We taking you back to Africa. And took them to Sierra Leone. Now, with Jefferson and Madison and them guys, they developed a recolonization program. Now, where were they going to ship the blacks?
Liberia.
Say it out.
Liberia.
Liberia. That was the recolonization program. But blacks said, we've been here too long.
We want to
Blacks
stay here.
said, we want to stay. They said, look, we've been here 3, 4 generations, 6, 7 generations. We don't know nothing about Africa. It wasn't that they already had that self-hate. We hate Africa more than those brothers did back then. They didn't know. They said, why would we go there? We are established here already. Just give us our freedom right here. Now, they wanted to send to Liberia free blacks because Jefferson could not imagine and countenance blacks walking around free. He said, what? Blacks walking around free around white women? That don't make no sense. He said, no, if you free, you better take your behind to
You ain't
Liberia.
staying around here.
Right, you ain't hanging around mines. No. So that's why they wanted to take them back.
Shit hanging over there to your ankle.
Yeah, well, so you know, that's reality. Any other questions?
Those ankle penises are a threat.
Now, as far as the presidents owning many slaves, but there were some presidents that very few, I think it was Quincy, Adams and John Adams,
Say that again?
slave owners.
Yeah.
And non-slave owners as president.
Yeah. Okay, well look. They had, the majority of them were slave owners. Guys like John and Sam Adams and all of them, that just wasn't them.
There was
Now, a guy like John Adams that had about 150, 160 acres of land, he said he lost a lot of money in taking care of that where he could have had slaves. He said that just wasn't him. Now, he wasn't going to fight anybody to free anybody, but it just wasn't him. Some people are just made that way. Say, I don't own nobody. I can't own anybody. That was John Adams. So, there were some white people that just said, is that Tad? That's not Tad, right?
No, that's Lamuma.
Okay. So, I knew it wasn't Tad, but it just looked a little bit like it. But, the majority of them that were in that room, they were in the elite class. They were mainly all, even Franklin had slaves. At the end of his life, I think when he knew he was getting ready to see Jesus soon, he freed all his slaves then. But that's the end of his life. Most of them all kept, and even guys like Jefferson, people say, well, he freed the slaves. He didn't free his slaves. He gave his slaves to his wife and said at the end of her life, you can free me. But that's not Jefferson. Jefferson didn't free anybody.
Is that the thing where they come at when they say we willing a nigga?
Well, in that sense, but I'm just saying, most of them didn't. They didn't free the slaves. The slaves freed themselves. That war cost well over 200,000 black people their lives. in that battle. Over 600,000 white people died in that war. That wasn't talk. They were getting down. This was the real thing. Now you can't tell a man, you can't tell over 4 million people, 4.5 million people, you got to put them chains back on now. You can't tell a man with a gun in his hand, he got his rifle, got his horse, he's been trained, he's been through a lot of battles. You tell that man to get these chains, he gonna kill you. He gonna fight. That's all he been doing for the past few years, fighting. And those other years that he wasn't fighting, he wanted to fight, but just couldn't. So that freed us. What about, real quick, what about, what about after slavery, the Tilden Hayes Compromise? Anybody remember that? The Tilden Hayes Compromise? In 1876, Samuel Tilden and Rutherford B. Hayes ran for president. This was the first time they had what is called a constitutional crisis.
Wow.
Because they could not determine a winner. You know, they could not determine who won and who lost.
What year? The year was
1876. So they had 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans, and which voted for their parties, and the tiebreaker was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. His name was William Bradley. He had to decide, how are we going to choose the next president, because they didn't have a precedent on how to handle this. So he negotiated in secret behind closed doors, and they came to the conclusion the South was clear. The South said, damn it, I don't care. The North can have their president. I don't care. But you got to get all these damn federal troops out of the South. That's all we want. We want sovereignty back in the South.
wow.
We want the South back. Pull all the federal troops out. We know what to do. You ain't got to do nothing. Pull the troops out. And they said, that's all you want?
Sure, no problem.
I said, that ain't no problem. You mean we can have our president, and all we got to do is take the federal troops out of Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama, and South Carolina. Just take them out? He said, yeah, that's all we want you to do.
And then they could, well, then they said they,
And we will have sovereign rule back.
and they just.
And that was the bloodiest time ever in America for black people.
1876.
From then on, with no federal troops,
They just.
the
tore our ass up.
KKK, white terrorist groups went bananas. So when you hear about all these massacres that were occurring all over the place, there were no federal troops there to enforce the law. If you don't have a federal troop in Georgia to enforce the law, who's in charge? Georgia. If you don't have federal troops in South Carolina, who's in charge?
They're gonna do the same
South
thing.
Carolina.
They're gonna do the same thing.
North Carolina. State rule. States' rights. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
States' rights. In other words, Big Brother can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
It's my state. You know that old Eddie Murphy joke, it's my house, Gus. It's my house.
So, yeah.
I rule this. Whatever I say goes. So, once the federal troops were pulled out, they went back to the old days.
Went back to what they was doing anyway.
They went back to what they was doing. Because now you don't have a federal arbiter. You don't have federal troops. The Justice Department can't do anything now. In other words, black folks, you on your own. You know what I know? You better get that shotgun loaded up. Better get a few sidearms, load up. So that's what happened, and that was
Most of them
1870s.
probably couldn't even do nothing anyway if they had that.
No, because you were overpowered. Because all those state militias were armed.
Right.
Now, you get to where after the Revolutionary War, after the Civil War, there was no need. Now that everything was back under control, laws were codified, you don't need state militias. You only need enough of a force in case there's some type of outrageous thing that occurs, either some kind of riot or a natural catastrophe, and you need people, Johnny on the spot in the Harry. But that aside,
Insurrection.
yeah, some type of insurrection, something going on with the federal government. So, you know,
Because these states do have their constitution, but then you have the Supreme Court.
every state to this day has what? A National Guard. They have National Guard in all 50 states. The governor is in control, can dispense. The state legislature, the governor, can discharge the National Guard. That's why whenever there's riots and things like that,
Right.
who do they look to? The governor.
Yeah, because
They look to the state house, whatever state you're in. They look to the state house to get those soldiers here and quell this violence. Well, that's what they did in Newark. That's what happened in Detroit. And we found out the bad side of that. If you put soldiers in a black area, they're going to shoot first. Ask questions later.
Because the armed forces is only supposed to be for external.
Exactly, that's what they're supposed to be for. But they look at you as the enemy. You know, if they say set up on Fulton in Nostrand, they're going to set up camp there. And the next checkpoint might be Nostrand and Lafayette. They set up there. If you step outside, you get it. So,
But before you leave, how did the Democrats become Republicans?
okay, that's a good question. I'm going to end this one with how did Democrats become Republicans, and then the reverse. How did Republicans become Democrats? Now, traditionally, the most racist whites in America were always Democrats. Now, this might be shocking to some people watching this on Zoom, and they're going to say, what? The Democratic Party was the party of the Ku Klux Klan, the White Citizens Council, and all these other traditional white terrorist groups. The Democratic Party. It was the Democratic Party in Wilmington, North Carolina, that just went berserk when they lost an election and all these black people got in office. It was the Democratic Party that went into political offices and ran them out, took sheriffs, went after the fire department, healthcare workers, hospitals, went after all of them. It was the Democratic Party that did that in 1898. It was the Democratic Party that did that. That's where Bilbo, Eastland, and all these guys, Tillman, came from. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read a thing on Tillman. Benjamin Ryan Tillman. We of the South have, okay, and let me just say for the record, he was a Democrat, he was a governor, and a U.S. Senator. This is an example of a Democrat back then. We of the South have never recognized the rights of the Negro to govern white men, and we never will. We never believed him to be equal to the white man, and we will not submit to gratifying his lust for our wives and daughters without lynching him. I would to God that every last one of them was in Africa and that none of them had ever been brought to our shore. This was a governor, Democratic governor, talking like that.
Of what state?
What state?
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Cackalack.
South Carolina, from Edgefield, if you need to know where he's from.
Probably
Because that's
not
in
too far.
Fallon.
That's probably not too far from
Edgefield.
something.
Edgefield is something else. And he made a speech after Booker T. Washington. Remember Booker T. Washington visited the White House? He visited the White House, and Governor Tillman said the action of President Theodore Roosevelt in entertaining that nigger, Booker T. Washington, will necessitate our killing 1,000 niggas in the South before they learn their place again.
Wow.
Can you imagine a governor and U.S. senator talking like that? A Democrat. And you know, he invited him to the White House, and after that, the uproar of whites was so bad for being invited to dinner that they turned what was then called the Executive Mansion. They started officially putting on stationery the White House to make white people feel better. It wasn't always called the White House.
Wow.
It was the Executive Mansion. They called it the White House because of Booker T having dinner there, and allegedly the story was he spent the night.
Oh, man.
So that's why white folks went bananas. So at that point is why Theodore Roosevelt renamed it the White House.
They didn't run up on the Capitol, though.
Say that
They
again?
didn't run up on the Capitol, did they? They didn't run up.
No, but they were upset. Now, give you another one. Bilbo, I mentioned Bilbo earlier from Mississippi, Democrat. He boasted about using the term nigger in a 20-minute speech 77 times. He used the word nigger. He said, I got the record. I called them niggers 77 times in a 20-minute speech. So he felt that he should be in the Guinness Book of Records for that.
Did they put him in it?
Oh, well, the Guinness Book don't have records like that.
The unofficial.
Oh yeah, no doubt. He said it. He said it.
That's 4 times a minute. That's pretty good.
4 times a minute?
That's talent. That, you gotta give it to him.
Yeah.
That's talent.
Yeah. Now, just to give you another person, I'm going to mention a name that everybody here knows, Pat Robinson.
The preacher.
Pat Robinson, the preacher, the Southern Baptist minister who used to have the 700 Club on TV. And I knew black people that used to send in money
That's right.
Yeah.
to the 700
Send
Club.
it on there.
You know what he wrote about President Obama? He said on President Obama, may your rule be short, may your wife become husbandless, may your children become fatherless. And that was his prayer to God on President Obama. A preacher talking like that. In other words, I hope he dies. So let me answer your question.
Was such inflammatory.
The reason why black people were Republicans is because that's the party of Lincoln. Lincoln was a Republican. Consequently, black people all over the country, whether you're from the South, the Midwest, the West, voted Republican. This existed from the moment we got the right to vote in 1870, and it didn't start changing until FDR became president. And that was in, he came into office in 33, he ran in 1832.
Now you mentioned now, which I mean, now you're gonna switch it. How the Europeans, that's why how the Europeans became Republicans.
Okay, but black people were Republicans already.
That's right.
Now when they saw FDR, MLK's father was Republican. Daddy King was a Republican. So that's why, because Republicans always say Daddy King was a Republican. Well, that's why, because that's the party of Lincoln. So when FDR started coming with the WPA program and all these different safety nets to help poor whites, and that helped some blacks, and it, people who were artists and writers and things like that. Yeah. Also the Harlem Renaissance and those types.
And after the war.
So it helped these programs at FDR. So people started shifting blacks to the Democratic Party. And whites started leaving. Strom Thurmond and all of them started leaving the Democratic Party because they were like, man, you giving those N-words this and what and that and Social Security and this and WPA, all these different safety nets. They said, hell no.
And mind you, they was between
So whites left. They ran on a white supremacist program in the 40s. And so that's why Malcolm said a Democrat ain't nothing but come on, say it. Dixiecrat. Because he's saying, in other words, you a Democrat, but you're really a Dixiecrat. You voting based on race. And race based on oppression. So that's why Malcolm called them Dixiecrats. In other words, I don't care what your party is, you a Dixiecrat. You support Dixie. You support the Confederacy. So whites started leaving the Democratic Party. Now it got even worse under John F. Kennedy. And then even worse under eventually Johnson. Lyndon Baines Johnson. And so when Lyndon Baines Johnson gave the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act 64, Voting Rights Act 65, and then the Housing Act in 68, do you know what he said right away? I just lost the South.
Yeah.
He admitted that. LBJ said, I lost the South. Because he understood they're not going to stand for that. I had to give him the Civil Rights Act because I got to put in a law to enforce black people's right to vote. I got to do it. The Civil Rights Act. I got to do the Voting Act a year later. And then I got to do the fair housing. I got to do it. It's been too long.
And we was in the
I gotta have fair housing. But he knew the South was watching. Now he's a die-in-the-wool Southerner, LBJ.
chewing tobacco in there.
Texas
boy.
But
Texas
was on fire. You had Big Dom.
So, he went through some stuff now. That's why he didn't run that second time. He could have gotten another term. He refused to run. Because he finished out the rest of the term of Kennedy, those few months, and then he did a full term, 4 years. Then he left. He said, I'm not running again. That's why Hubert Humphrey ran. But he said at that point, because he understood his people, he said, nobody knows the South better than me. all those years he spent in the U.S. Senate, he said, man, I know these cats. They're not going to allow me to do
Anything like
Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, and then a fair housing. He said, we just lost the Democratic Party. He said, we just lost the Democrats in the South. It's going Republican. And he was right. From then on, the South has been
South is
Republican. So, Jimmy Carter barely won because he's from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And then who was the next one that won?
Ford.
No, Reagan's Republican. He
Oh,
wasn't
okay,
Democrat. He's one of them guys that
That's
left.
Democrat that
Was
was?
it Ford?
No, come on, that's easy. Clinton!
Clinton.
Clinton, the Southern boy, Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Southerner. That's the only reason he got in.
Dixie crack.
Yes. Now, he had relationships with black elected officials in Arkansas. They loved him because the Southerners is charming. Nobody can tell a story like a Southerner.
That's right.
And Clinton could charm. He can go from table to table at a fundraiser. You ever seen Clinton at a fundraiser?
Oh, he's smooth.
He go from table to table, and you gonna write them checks. He gonna tell you a joke. When he would lean over a table and say something, the whole table would start laughing. And then they doing this. They writing a check. He go to the next table, tell a joke.
And didn't they give him the nickname Slick Willie?
Yeah.
Slick Willie, yeah.
Yeah, you can't get a hold on him. Too slick. So you know,
He did it today.
so you know the few Democrats. The few Democrats that carried the South were all Southern boys. You know, like I said, Georgia, Arkansas, Southerners. Obama didn't carry the South.
No.
And neither did Biden.
But why they don't make him
Hillary
fly?
Clinton got her butt kicked because she's from Illinois. South don't like her. So I'm just saying that the Democrats, it took time, but the white Democrats, who were always racist to the core, left and went into the Republican Party. LBJ knew it. Kennedy understood it. It was going to happen. But the Democratic Party needed black votes. And that's the only reason why they're alive to this day, instead of suffocating, because they know the Democratic Party nationwide loses every election if you went by the general election. It's the black vote that keeps them in when they do get in. It's the black vote. So the traditional blacks who were Republican in the 1800s, the early 1900s, that shift occurred under FDR in the 1930s. Before that, every black person you ran into was all Republican. That's why the first Republican congressman was from Chicago, DePriest. He was Republican. He's Republican.
They all did a switcheroo.
So that happened, it took years. By the time Adam Clayton Powell came around, Dawson in Chicago, by then the shift was already occurring, where blacks were voting for Democrats. And it became solidified under Kennedy, but it had already been happening because of FDR and his programs to safeguard people from just being broke and not having nothing.
And that was white people.
Yeah, it was helping white people.
White people.
The WPA helped white people more than anybody else. The same way Biden's infrastructure bill helped white businesses more than black businesses.
Affirmative action.
You know, so, you know, he has always did things. The United Auto Workers is going to benefit whites, more so than blacks. A whole lot of black people lost their job in Detroit, in Michigan. Lot, even though they were the biggest employer. Now, who's the largest employer of black people? Always been for the last
Government.
50, 60, 70 years.
The government.
The military,
Okay.
the federal government, the military has always been number one. Detroit and all that stuff was number two. But the number one employer has always been the federal government, and the Confederates don't like that. That's why they got a problem with the federal government. They like the federal government more under Woodrow Wilson, who just fired everybody. And then the ones that he didn't fire, segregated them. They had to have windows and separate themselves from whites, because as a black man, you can't be around a white woman with a suit and a tie on, sitting near her. You look too presentable. Look like you want to do something.
He can't have
As
as Biden said, hanging around our people. Lock 'em up.
Yeah, well, Biden was the one that said he don't want no overgrown 8 or 10-year-old black child sitting next to a little white girl.
That's right.
Because in his thinking, he 10 years old, he gonna want some nookie. And he's gonna want it from her. That's his mind. That's how he thinks. So, you know,
And
it
he
is what
said
it
it in
is.
his crime bill.
So, you know, I'll end it by just saying that with respect to Mackey's, let me just say for the record, Dr. Lewis has done an incredible job over the last few weeks. His series on the new developments going on in Africa is nothing short of phenomenal. It was a master class, and I loved it, and I like the work that Sister Keisha is putting in. Certainly she was here tonight, and want to again thank CMOTEP for all that it does, and hope that it's successful. I know it will be. I'm sorry I'm going to miss that. And to Brother Ray, who is here every other Wednesday, and make sure that this keep going in the spirit of the United African Movement, to go in that spirit and to constantly educate, agitate among our people, that spirit, to keep that going, to organize and to unify with other blacks. I thank him so much for keeping that spirit going. So with that, I'll just say that let's be strong
Pilgrimage from Malcolm.
and let's do better. Now, the Sunday coming is the pilgrimage to the gravesite of Malcolm. That will be this Sunday, the 19th. I wish I had the address for the
With Ferncliff?
Ferncliff Cemetery.
Hold up.
Ferncliff Cemetery is upstate.
It's 75 Whitechester View Lane in White Plains, New York.
Meeting point.
The meeting point is going to be at the Harlem State Office Building, outside. The Harlem State Office Building, let's say 9 o'clock. Outside. Outside the Harlem State Office Building, and that's on 125th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard.
Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard.
And
Old timers call it 7th Avenue, but it's Adam Clayton Powell
and
Boulevard.
D12 have a shut.
And D12
shut it down.
shuts down 125th Street. You know, you got to give it to them, because they go from river to river,
Right.
basically, from river to river, every Malcolm's birthday. So to those who go to the grave site, and to those who shut down stores to show respect for El Haj Malik El Shabazz, commonly known as Malcolm X. Big props to them for doing that. And with that, Hotep, stay strong.
All right, give